6 p.m. Right on time today. All right, so the first order on our agenda is to just review the meeting minutes from June and August and see if anybody had any comments. Did not.
I did not see any issues. I thought they were all very good and exactly what we talked about.
Thank
I
you.
motion to, I motion to, can we approve both of them at once? Yes, right. I motion to approve the meeting minutes for June 12th and August 14th as is. Second. And then we're gonna do a roll call vote. So we'll start with those on the call or on Zoom.
Allison, yes.
Howard Phipps, aye.
James Thatch, aye.
Gabrielle Cocello, aye. Lisa Michael, aye. All right, so then we are moving right on to item number 3, which is the update from the town administrator.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right in the room?
Mhm.
All right, great. I believe I've met all or most of you. So I'm Jeremy. I'm the town administrator. I've been here a little over a year. Sometimes it feels like 5 years. Sometimes it feels like 5 weeks. So it's been fun. So if I haven't met you, stop by sometime. I'll say hello. So I want to touch on a couple of things tonight, and I left my notebook in my office, and I know there were 3 things. So I'm going to do the 2, and then Andrew's going to remind me what the 3rd thing was that I was supposed to. So, or maybe Lisa will. So anyway, kind of first and most foremost, since I haven't joined one of your meetings before, I want to thank you all for your service to the town. We've had a big push from the select board to get folks to join boards and commissions because you're kind of the policy and advisory drivers and the kind of boots on the ground stuff. So thank you all for your service to the town. So first, I'm going to talk about what we have right now is the Council on Aging feasibility study. So as you know, we've had 2 ballot measures fail by razor-thin margins for a debt exclusion for a senior and community center on North Ave. And some of the pushback, not all of it, some of the pushback that I have heard is, why didn't we explore X, Y, and Z? At the end of calendar year 24, we had a bunch of ARPA money, or not a bunch, we had a pot of ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money, that we had allocated for, the select board had previously allocated for adaptive reuse of the senior center. So presuming that we had secured funding for a new center, it was money to study what we were going to do with the existing center. And since the new center didn't come to fruition, we instead took that money plus a little bit more and said, all right, let's explore some alternatives to the North Ave site. And frankly, my position has been, and I've said it publicly before, that I think the North Ave site is the best. But in order to kind of satisfy all of the possible places where we could do a senior community center, we did this feasibility study. And what this feasibility, and we're in the midst of it. I said did, we are doing. And what this did was it engaged with an architecture firm after a brief interview process. And so we engaged with Abacus architects and engineers, who the trustees may know from the current building you're in. And I had actually worked with Abacus when I was the budget director and capital projects administrator in Attleboro on their senior center. The point in this study was to study places that members of the public had said, why not here? So it narrowed down to 3 places that we're looking at and studying the feasibility of. One, the shell of a building that was previously conceived as a police station on Morrison Drive. That was ruled out pretty quickly. Wetlands, access, general square footage. There's not really a lot there to work with. It doesn't offer much more over a greenfield site. So we would rather build new on North Ave than try to squeeze something into a too small place with not enough parking and wetlands and access issues where you have to drive across a fire department apron to get there. So that was ruled out pretty quickly. Expand in place, which is something we're currently envisioning. So taking measurements and doing that whole thing, trying to wedge senior centers desired programming into the square footage there and what an addition looks like there. So almost universally, I never want to talk in absolutes, but almost universally, rehabilitation costs far more per square foot than new build. So it's my anticipation that saying getting the square footage and the programmatic space in the current senior center and bringing the current center up to code and modern kind of usefulness is not going to work dollars and cents wise compared to a new build on North Ave. And then the third space that's been brought to my attention was how far can we push back the current parking lot at the library and then create a senior and community center with a library and create a multi-function space that kind of bridges the two gaps between these different buildings and essentially create a big community room in the middle that the senior center can use in the evenings and the library can use during the day. And how does that work? And can we get enough parking? And so that's been the most promising of those three options. But still in those conversations, it doesn't match up against a greenfield site at North Ave. It provides an okay solution, but not the programmatic needs of the senior and community center, and then infringes upon future library expansion. So in these kind of early stages of this, or mid stages of this study, kind of none of these are as good as North Ave, which I think most folks who've been working on this for a long time also agree. But I thought it was important. I spoke with Andrew and I spoke with James a few months ago. But I thought it was important to come to the trustees now and say, here's where the study's at, here's where my head's at, and here's where kind of we think we are going forward. So there's going to be a sketch of what a senior and community center would look like at the library. But it's my anticipation that this would be great if it was kind of just the library or just a senior and community center. But the way the footprint, the parking, the wetlands, the detention basins in the back, how that all kind of fits together, it doesn't work to have both buildings in the same site. So kind of, politically, I was like, well, maybe we do this, and then it just becomes just the senior center and we build a new library later. But that seemed a little, or vice versa, but that seemed a little pie in the sky sort of approach to public building, which isn't kind of how I want to approach things. So I thought it was important that I came and talked to you all, let you know about the study, and to say, at this point, it will be my recommendation from what I know now, at the end of the study, to say none of these measure up to the North Ave site in terms of build going forward. But I didn't want the trustees to get this study and kind of read it cold and think that the administration and the select board was advocating an expansion at the library. It's been a point of the public, and I thought it was important that we measure it, and I think we have. I think we've done our due diligence probably twice now. But I'm happy to take any questions as to where we're at or why, or steps forward, or even how do we make this work if you all have ideas and think it is a good idea. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's helpful to understand where this sits and kind of the background that's gone into it. We obviously do know advocates well, because they did the 2016 look at the rectory and what to do there. Two things. One, thanks for including us before this really starts going out. That's important. That's a big part of the teamwork side. The other one is we're still working through the rectory subcommittee feasibility study as well. We've gotten most of that data together, which we'll hopefully be presenting to the primary trustees here in a month or so. And we were actually surprised to see some of the recommended or potential costs or whatnot in comparison. Now, granted, we have a building that is fairly well formed, but it didn't come out as nearly as much in some respects as we thought. Now, that's still not going to be an answer for this bigger question of where is a senior center, community center versus, could it be here, could it be North Ave or somewhere else? We want to, so I guess I bring all that up because the cost one was a surprising one to me when we talk about rehab versus new build. And then the second part is the pie in the sky question is not a bad one to have, and not one to shy away from, especially as a committee, because we're here to help the taxpayers and the select board. you brought up the how, what could it look like? Do we rebuild one to do another, do something like that? Did that discussion go any farther, or has there been anything else in there that's you could enlighten us on?
Yeah, it's a good question. It hasn't been a select board discussion point. It's been between myself and the architects. It's I don't want to be in the position of seeming like we're doing a bait and switch with the taxpayer, where I'm saying we're building this joint center, but then we're going to need a new one later for both of them. So that was kind of my apprehension to it, in that I would want to go in it kind of eyes wide open with folks, saying this is our. Again, I don't think it's the most economical or the most viable, but if we were to build a new site, then it certainly is, because you both get a great building out of it. But we'd have to go into it eyes wide open, the taxpayer saying, we're going to go the cheaper route for a 5-year solution, but then we're going to come back with a, don't hold me to this, but we're going to come back with a $15 million, $17 million building, 5, 6, 7 years from now. That becomes a policy question that I'm happy to provide input on and execute. But right now that wasn't, that hasn't been brought to the select board or the council on aging or the trustees as kind of a viable thing, because it seems a little disingenuous to the point of what this study was made out to be.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions. I guess the only question I have, and it's not, I'm Gabrielle, by the way, Jeremy, I don't think we've actually met in person, but is that based on the fact that we just completed or are in the process of completing our feasibility study for the rectory space, what is the timing so that, like, our next step in our mind, our last meeting we discussed, maybe at October trustee meeting, we would bring it to the rest of the trustees, because as James and I are the only trustees on that subcommittee. So that we would bring it to the rest of the trustees, let them know what's going on with the feasibility and where we stand, and share the report with them. So what is the timing of what you're working on, so that when we get to that next step after that, which is bringing it potentially to the select board, I don't want it to come at have our timing be so off that we're just gonna get kicked out. And not to say that I don't, if you guys are gonna move forward and the plan is to move forward with combining the buildings, that's fantastic. But I don't want either one to get, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
Makes perfect sense. Sure.
Yeah, I get what
yeah.
I get what you're trying to get at. So our study will not be complete by October. So anything that you bring to the trustees with a study, we'll then pitch over to our consultants and we'll say, this is the alternative. So none of this exists in a vacuum. So it's not to say, does the library exist as is, or is it this combined vision? Does the library exist as is? What's their plan going forward? What's the combined vision? And then it's kind of a, cost benefit or not necessarily cost benefit, but an analysis of all of those together. So if you
have to take that into consideration, obviously.
Yeah, so if you complete it first, that'd be great. It would inform what we can compare against. I don't think that timing puts you in a box at all.
Okay, so if we stay on track, present to the trustees in October, and then we reconnect with you to say, before going to the select board, and I mean, we know that we're not at the point that we're ready to bring it to the town or annual town meeting or special town meeting or whatever. But, so we should just touch base after we present to the trustees, and kind of, so that we want to work as a team, a collaborative team for everybody. Everybody should be able to get something out of it. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's, likely some middle ground that comes out of it, right? That there is some improvements to the library grounds that have a community aspect to it that aren't necessarily a senior center, and then we can go ahead with the senior center piece. Like we're not working in absolutes here. So the rectory study from GRLA informing what Abacus can measure against, I think works well.
Okay, good. Okay.
And I did mention at the rectory meeting as well that getting our data into capital planning as well will help energize that bigger question of where does this map out for down the road. Is this a short term? Is it midterm or no?
Right.
Do we have to evaluate something? But so we're already tracking that part as well.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, 'cause we did talk about going to trustees and then capital planning, so, okay.
Yeah, the library and the trustees are benefited by James's hyper involvement that he's on. Yeah, he's on capital planning as well.
We know.
Sorry?
No, don't be
No, it's
sorry.
I
Don't
only
be
have to learn
sorry, we'd all
many-
be lost
I only have to
without you.
learn so many names. It's great. So I have no finality. I have no report here. This is just kind of a status report where there's this thing in my line of work where boards and members of the public say, why am I hearing about this for the first time? It's like, well, you have to hear about it the first time at some point. So I wanted that to be now rather than when the report was presented to select board or in the public or something like that.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that very much.
Of course. So as we have any sort of, there's no finality to it, but as we have kind of more definitive recommendations, I'll keep the trustees abreast of it.
Thank you.
And all right, so if there's no other questions on that, the second thing I wanted to talk about is about our 4 additional hours that were approved in the general fund budget or in the 2026 budget, and how that kind of gets weighed against the trustees state account, against the library state account. So in fiscal 2025, last fiscal year, the select board added 4 additional hours to library assistance. That wasn't enough to, as you are all aware, but for the record, that wasn't enough to kind of add an additional position. So it was kind of used in a floating manner, in a coverage manner, additional, task manner. And then Andrew had come to me and said, let's get 4 additional hours so we can take that 4 and 4 and get an 8-hour position we can open up on Mondays. And that was something the select board, was supportive of and said, let's, we'd love to have the library open on Mondays. They used to be open many more hours than it is right now. So let's work towards, that direction. And looking at the balance of your state aid account versus the as a percentage of your annual budget, it's quite high. And so what the select board asked was, we're adding a bunch of stuff all over the place. Can we share in this fiscal 26 burden? So saying, can we have the trustees pay for these 4 hours in fiscal 26? And then on fiscal 20, with the full understanding, go back and watch the budget meetings, the full understanding that in fiscal 27, the general fund takes this on. So this is kind of a bridge funding as we talked about it. So because there is a healthy and unthreatened balance in the state aid account for the trustees, the way we've structured this is that the first 4 hours within a pay period of this individual who is hired at the 8 hours is charged to the trustees account. And then, or not per pay period, sorry, per week. And then the additional, whether it's 3 that week or 5 the next week, is charged to the general fund. So it sets the floor and the ceiling for the trustees at the same level. So it's a knowable amount. It is 4 hours every week. And then any under hours are benefited by the general fund, and any over hours are borne by the general fund. So it kind of, it steadies and it gives you a known quantity. And then the general fund takes on both the upside and the downside risk, which I don't think there's really a lot of downside risk. But then after fiscal 26, the whole of it comes back to the general fund. And there will no longer be those 4 hours charged to the state account. And then kind of 2 additional comments before anyone wants to ask any questions. One is, I would be interested, I'm not going to influence the discussion, but I'd be interested to know what the trustees' plan for the state account is. So just kind of sitting on 80 grand or whatever is, I get that it insulates from future shocks. And if there's general fund cuts, you get to pick up, and we're in economic uncertain times. So you get to kind of pick up things that were otherwise cut from the general fund. And if that's the answer, I get that. But the magnitude of dollars versus your operating budget is higher than the general fund has as a percentage. So if there's some plan, if there's capital investments that we want to make it into the capital plan or not, and say, our identified funding source is the state account, that would be great. And then kind of the second thing is, it's a great benefit to this group and to the library. In my previous communities, this was not the way we set up library state aid on the general ledger. It was recognized as an offset in our local receipts, and there was not kind of this independent funding source for libraries. So I think it's a great tool for you all, and I'm glad to see that you have a dedicated, segregated funding source, and so I welcome either however much assistance, input, guidance, whatever you want from me, but in order to be able to continually invest those dollars in the library.
I'll just say, so I think this initially came up because of where we were in terms of an overage at the end of FY25. I think it was about 11,000 in salaries, and I think the question was posed, why couldn't the money, because we might potentially have that amount, come from the fund from salaries, the salary line initially, and then toward the back end of the year come from state aid. Am I characterizing that correctly? And I did talk to you about that, Jeremy, when we were.
Yeah. So
if you want to just tell them.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, as Andrew said, there was so the way we budget salaries is we say, who do you have? How much are they making? How many hours are they scheduled to work? So then if somebody goes out on unpaid leave, somebody calls out and doesn't work, and you fill it with a lower wage person, or you don't fill it at all because Andrew's there at the desk and it's just 3 hours at the end of a Thursday or whatever, you get this slippage, and you get overages in your salary line. We budget so I'm never going to budget for that savings. I want to budget to say you're going to staff fully at your anticipated range all year long. And if you turn back $11,000, that goes back to free cash for the town. The police department turned back $110,000, I think, in salaries, and highway turned back like $65,000 in salaries, something like that. So it happens in every department, and I never want to be in the position of assuming that attrition, right? So it's also if someone leaves and you bring someone in at a lower rate. So we never want to assume that attrition, but when it happens, we're glad to benefit from it, and that's what kind of fuels free cash. And then we get to come in and do capital projects, and do all the stuff that capital planning committee and that Andrew submits to us. So it's not uncommon to have that. I would, even if you had, so you're likely have a surplus in salaries this year too, on the general fund, just as the way it works. But I wouldn't want to count on that. So when I was at the public schools of Brookline, $119 million back in 2019, 2020, we had an account where we budgeted a negative expense account to call like salary savings. And every time a teacher resigned and we replaced them with a lower salary person, I'd do the calculations and I'd move the money down to that negative account. And it was always nip and tuck in May and June to try to figure out if we can balance or not. And that's kind of like no way to run a railroad sort of thing. And I wouldn't want us to be in the position of assuming you're going to have salary savings. So it's a great kind of way to come to the capital planning committee and say, hey, we turned back 20 grand last year, like reinvest that in a library. And I think that's a compelling argument. So that's why it's on the state account, just because we want to budget in a conservative manner, not in a kind of anticipatory, hopeful manner.
I think our initial concern when we were first discussing that, I want to say for FY26, because we had agreed to it in FY25, we were concerned that could become the precedent, like now every time we were going to do that. But then obviously we've had the discussions and you guys have come up with your plan. But then I think we were also nervous, especially closer to the beginning of FY26, that with the way the world is right now, like, are we even going to get the state aid, and are we going to, is it going to dry up all of a sudden, and then we're just, left with what we have to play with. So I think that was our biggest concern. It's not that we're not willing to be a team player and use the money wisely. I think we were just really concerned, especially at the state of the country at the time that we were having this discussion.
Yeah, I totally get that. Every time I go to a conference or a meeting, and it's like, well, who knows what the feds are going to do at the end of every conversation. So 25, as I understand it, there was, I think, $16,000 worth of the children's librarian salary that was on the state aid fund. And then, so for fiscal 26, 100% of that position has been absorbed by the general fund. So that fiscal 25 obligation, 100% on the general fund. And then, so that's the plan. So I said at select board, I'll say to you all, that's the plan with this additional 4 hours too. So this 4 hours is on the state aid fund for fiscal 26, and then we can absorb that in fiscal 27 in a way that won't really even be noticeable to the general fund. And then if the library wants to kind of expand staffing or hours again, I plan to take this same approach too, where this bridge funding, where it's we have this independent funding source where we get to, if you want an adult services librarian or whatever it is, right? Like that there's money in from the state fund. Hi, sorry, my daughter just walked in.
That's good.
That if there's this money here from the state fund, to be able to bridge the gap to get to the permanent hours.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And I personally, I appreciate that both you and the select board have listened and understood
Yes.
our concerns.
Mhm.
And you've taken into account how to make sure that money, our wishes for that, to make sure that the fund is there for the library, is continued. That's huge. We had sat down last year and really talked about where do we want staffing to be a year down or 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
So we're already building out a plan of what we want that to look like. This helps us understand also the town's perspective
Yeah.
on how to approach some of those either smaller gaps. But I would say that if we have some of those larger desires, I would expect to see us coming back and being like, this one's doesn't fit the norm. This is more of a full hire. How do we approach that correctly? So in my brain, that's kind of the one spot where I could see us deviating from this plan, but still something that's, if it's smart for both the library and the town, I think an easy thing to make happen. But that is smart.
I agree. I mean, in the last 3 to 4 years, the collaboration and cooperation, the collaboration between the select board and the library trustees, along with other town departments, but it's night and day compared to what it used to be. So we appreciate that. And, with you on board, Jeremy, and just the select board, current select board, moving forward, it's been a good experience. So.
Yeah, great. It's been I think we've been able to do a lot together. And I'm excited for special town meeting when we can appropriate some more free cash and do some more capital projects. So it'll be great.
And Jeremy, family's good because my daughter's just over
Yeah.
there, just a little bit older now, but you did say you had 3 things.
3 things,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
The last would have been the Collins Center study.
Oh, yes. Sorry, she minimized you all as she was leaving. Thanks a lot. So the Collins Center study. So thank you, Andrew. We finalized this study, and I presented to select, so that this is a compensation and classification study. So it's equal parts compensation and classification. So Collins Center interviewed everyone's supervisors, came up with kind of job descriptions, roles, responsibilities, and kind of classified them internally into various grades. I shared the study with Andrew and Lisa. Feel free to share it with the entire board. And then it did a market study of communities around us and said, what do you pay these people? And then came up with recommended ranges for various positions. So on September 3rd, I presented that to the select board and said, so the data is all public, but my analysis is like part of the collective bargaining piece of it. And then I'm going to present again on kind of an approach on the 17th, and then we'll start meeting with all the unions. But we've essentially got ranges. We've got kind of steps and ranges. some positions we're within the market rate, and then most we're below. So it then becomes a discussion between unions, appointing authorities, individuals, on how do we want to fund this study, or do we agree with the parameters of the study, and do we agree on how to project that study going forward? Because it's all done in fiscal 25 numbers. So how we bring it to today is pretty straightforward, but then how do we bring it to fiscals 27, 8, and 9 is subject to debate. And then how much of it do we want to fund and get there in fiscal 27? And then, more piecemeal get there in 28 and 29 to bring us in market competitiveness. I don't think Mendon should be the highest paying community in the Blackstone Valley or Worcester County. I don't, we're not the biggest or most complicated place. We have lots of people doing lots of great work, but we're never going to be the highest paying municipality, and that's not our goal. So we'll go into negotiations now-ish in the next couple of weeks, and how that reflects on the trustees is that. Thank you for taking my guidance on it. Andrew's got a TBD number for fiscal 27 because we were waiting for this. Study. So we'll take my approach is to kind of start with the unions. They're the biggest bit, and have that inform what we do with the non-union folks. So my expectation would be that rather than the trustees come up with a number out of thin air, and rather than the Board of Assessors and the Board of Health or whatever come up with a number out of thin air, is that I'll bring something to you all, whether you want to do it in an executive session, if you just want me to send it to the board and then you have your own executive session, is to say, here's what I anticipate the select board, approving to fund in the fiscal 27 budget. And then I can send you as many other contracts as you want to, right? We're all public record stuff. So if you want to see what we did with the assessor between 26 and 27, or me between 26 and 27, you're free to do that. And then the kind of two other pieces are, so Andrew has a contract between, or the director, I should say, has a contract between the trustees and the director. There's not currently an employment agreement between the children's librarian and the trustees. And I think that level position should have one. We have one between the, conservation agent and the planner and the HR coordinator, kind of those department head levels, which previously didn't have individual contracts. We've just executed those. And then positions like executive assistants that aren't in unions have kind of these 1 to 2 pager employment agreements that just says, this is your job, see the attached job description, here's your salary, please sign that you've read and understood the personnel policy. So I want to roll that out for the library assistants as well, just so that there's some parameter for them, rather than just it existing in payroll and nowhere else, that there's a written record of the terms of their employment, and that they acknowledge that they've read and understood the personnel policies. So we plan to roll that out for fiscal 27, just because mid-year, we're not there yet, and doing it mid-year while we're in the middle of negotiations seems not the most important piece. And also our personnel policies are currently with Labor Council to review and have the select board vote on, because they haven't been updated since 2011. So it needed a refresh. So I plan to get all those out. But anyway, the kind of takeaway for you all is I'm going to do the work in terms of contextualizing the study for staff and for the library director specifically, and then I'll send it all to you, and you can do with it what you want, or you can I can be involved in the process as much as you would find useful.
Okay. So just so I understand it, I'm assuming you, along with HR or whatever, you'll work out with individuals what their individual salaries will be. So Andrew or Tara, and then, or whatever their titles are, and then going down the line of so we won't necessarily be involved in that, or are we? We would be involved. We would be involved. Yeah.
So you get to, the agreement is between, so this is the fun small town. This is the fun small town politic piece. The agreement is between the trustees and the director. Yeah. Okay. And then the recommended budget is from the select board, and then it gets approved by town meeting. So so you all can execute an agreement with Andrew for $200,000 a year, but if select board and town meeting only whatever, some smaller amount than that, then that's what Andrew gets paid. but in actuality, it becomes a kind of a collaborative thing. So typically
Okay.
what has happened over the past couple of cycles is to say, this is the cost of living adjustment for everyone else. And we're going to apply that to the library director as well. Because this is more of a market adjustment, and I think it's the first time we've done it since 2015, it's not going to be uniform percentage-wise between positions. So some positions will see 2%, some positions will see 8% or whatever, that kind of thing. And then in years 2 and 3 of the cycle, we'll see uniform cost of living adjustments, but that first year will be a little different. So that's why I think there should be a little bit more involvement from my office and HR to say, this is how the study impacts the children's librarian and the library director in year 1, and then years 2 and 3 will be uniform across the board. But we'll provide you with the context. You're independently elected and get to do what you want. But I'll provide you with the context of what we find to be an affordability level for the town.
Okay.
And Jeremy, that's across, in terms of each of those contracts for children's and the library assistants, that's the town buying through the trustees, correct? I mean, the agreement is essentially for all those positions through the trustees.
Yep. So the
Okay.
agreement is all, So I'd like to know your opinion, your all opinion on this. The select board appointed library assistants to their position to say, so-and-so is appointed a library assistant at such and such rate. I think that might have been overkill. I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know your view on it. I actually don't know. So you all, recommended it. I'm not quite sure how that relationship works.
We did? Cool.
It might have been
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was a couple.
Okay.
Okay.
But in any event, I anticipate that the contracts and the employment agreements will be signed either by the whole of the trustees, the chair of trustees, however you all want to do it, and then will be recommended for funding by the select board and approved by town meeting.
Okay. One last question on this one. Over the past few years, part of our strategic plan is to redo job descriptions and make sure what we're actually doing is being represented in our stuff, which from what I understand was actually very helpful when it went to the, Collins Center because they had good data. This is sounding to me more like we're going to have an HR function of contracts and then within that description of duties. So I think my bigger question is how much of that will we own versus HR own for that build out of that document?
Yeah. Andrew asked me this earlier today or yesterday or something. So yeah, you all have your job descriptions and then we have the Collins Center produced ones. The library and then both police and fire had done a great job kind of internally about having something ready to go. And we didn't have to kind of either adjust our ones from 10 years ago or kind of build it from scratch. So I think on the day-to-day job descriptions, I think yours kind of trump it. I think it's an agreement between the trustees and the individual. So what they're expected to do is that. What the Collins Center job descriptions did was it allowed us to do kind of an internal equity sort of thing. So it talked about supervision exercise, supervision received, decision-making, qualifications, that sort of thing. And that allowed us to put people in various grades internally to say, this is the salary band that should apply to these two very disparate positions, but they have similar, role.
Sure.
They have similar responsibilities, similar supervisory, even if it's in totally different categories. So in terms of what gets attached to those one pagers and what you all should reference kind of on a performance review and that sort of thing, go with the trustees approved job descriptions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just one quick thing, Jeremy, and you talked about those classification grades. And I think we talked about how the library assistant classification was grade E. And I'm assuming at this point that's sort of set, that there's not like any flexibility there. Because we talked about it as like class E or grade E was also like van drivers and that sort of thing.
So I talked about this with a few other folks recently in that, so for whoever else is watching this, so we got the study and I had 2 edits that I sent back to the report drafters. One was about that they were silent on any data on like a senior director, assistant town administrator sort of thing. And I wanted them to talk about why they were silent on that. And then the other edit was that they called our highway surveyor elected when really he's appointed. And those are the two edits that I had. I wanted to be very careful to not edit their professional judgment on what the classification was. I didn't want any ability for folks to come back and say, well, this study was manipulated in the way that the administration wanted it to be. So that was the Collins Center takeaway. We can, it's not like they're signing our contracts for us, so we can interpret it in whatever kind of way we want. But yeah, it's Class E because that's what Collins Center said, and they're grading after their interviews with folks. And I didn't want to put my finger on the scale. There were other times I will put my finger on the scale, but this was not one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very
Of
much.
course, and anything else generally while I'm here? Your agenda was broad enough that whatever you want to ask me while I'm here, you're free to.
Well, I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
In case there were other things that came up. I don't specifically have anything.
No, you hear from me too much anyway, so I'm sorry.
Anything you wanted to
I
add?
don't think so. Compensation, yeah, the things that I put in the report, I think all of those things were addressed already, so I think we're good.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
great.
Thanks, Sharon.
All right,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Chairman.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So are you still good if we pass over the Friends update? I know you
Yes,
had
we
emailed
don't
and
have
said,
Friends meeting until Monday, so there's no update
Oh, that review.
from the last.
not trying to.
October, I will have volumes.
All right, so that brings us right to Andrew.
Yeah, did everybody have a chance to go through? I think I mentioned that I would try to be very quick. So just a couple of things. I'm not really gonna go through the salary overages from the last couple of years. I think Jeremy talked about that quite a bit. When I went through and actually double checked the numbers, it really had everything to do with vacations, sick leave, and then individuals covering like myself or the seniors who aren't, that.
Not coming out of salary.
It's not coming out of the salary line.
I still think we need to use them whenever humanly possible.
Oh, I agree.
I mean.
Yeah. And I totally get that.
We have worked really hard to get every single hour you have, that we get from them, that I really don't like giving it back.
No, I agree.
I mean, I'm not a fan either, but I will say that I have tried in previous years, like, I have project hours available for people. It's not.
Yeah, having people available who
taking
want the
advantage of those
hours.
things.
Right.
It's not happening. So
I know.
if you have some ideas, I'm certainly open to it. I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind occasionally double scheduling if you feel we need to double schedule, and certain times when I'm not here or maybe Tara isn't here and require that. I'll certainly lean in more to using it and seeing, what we can do. I'm gonna track it month to month now and see how, if we're behind, ahead, whatnot. Right now, we're just about, I think I said 1% ahead, but we're actually 1% below where we should be about right now, percentage wise, but that's negligible. But we'll see, I mean, as we go forward. And then, but if you do have ideas for how we want to, potentially maximize, but I don't like leaving that on the table.
No.
I would just as soon us use that and, and I don't know, I mean, like, we could get through half the year and say, look, and we could make some big decisions but if any of those big decisions, like say, trying to be open, additional hours, I'd be really careful about that because
Right.
there could be other years where we just don't have it.
Right.
So, but I'm open to suggestions on that.
I think Jeremy's comment to me it was refreshing to hear that when the money does go back, it goes back to free cash and becomes then a resource to be used.
Right,
That, I think,
right.
it was good to hear that confirmation.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it comes back to us.
To us,
It goes
right.
back to free cash for them to do whatever they want with.
Right.
And, you know, he alluded to it might come back to one of our projects, but that's not guaranteed.
Right.
True.
And I'm a little salty about it, so I'm not gonna.
No, and I think it's fine. I mean, I totally agree, and because we built the budget to make sure that those funds are there to meet the needs of the library. It's both staffing and equipment and resources and all that stuff. So you should be able to do that. That's what we should be able to execute.
Right.
It was also a bit surprising to hear, 100 some odd thousand was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you told me that, I was like, oh.
So I recognize that even from a percentage of budget, it's probably equal.
Right.
There are 11 or 12 is close to the same percentage.
I think you said 62 for the fire department.
Fire department, yeah. So that better helps me understand something. And he brought up the capital planning point. And I think, so one, we're still so young, we don't even really have authorities yet on everything. We're still just advising to the select board and to FinCom. That's gonna change over the next year and two to when the plan really starts building out for what the long term is. I think it's very logical, and I'm gonna bring it up directly, that if we know certain folks are left X percentage on the docket, that we look to their projects first for that percentage. Because that's just smart use of town money. So like if
That
Police
place is
is
already
leaving.
supposed to be there.
Sure, if police is leaving 10% on the budget, well, what do they need to fix? Do they need another car? Do they need something like that? That would be a capital expense.
Right.
That's pretty logical.
So two things I would say, it's always infinitely easier for me to take the operations budget and spend it down. I think I said we were maybe 700 left at the end of this year, as
Yeah.
opposed to 11,000.
Yeah.
One thing we can look at is, as we get toward the end of the year, if it's looking like there's going to be that sort of excess in the salaries line, we can do a transfer. The transfer requires select board and getting the approval to transfer the funding over to operations. If we decide we need,
Sure.
based on our, and sometimes things get.
Prior to it going into free cash, right?
Yes.
We transferred to them.
Yes, so, yeah, it's tough to know, yeah, but let me think, like, probably on February, March, April, we're gonna know
That's true.
what's gonna be
Yeah.
there. So rather than, because occasionally what I'll do is I'll tap into the revolving account, or I might tap into, there's a cleft fund and a children's gift fund. And occasionally I'll do that if I feel like we're getting really close on the operations end at the end of the year.
Sure.
But why not? All right, let's move 2,000 over from salaries. And that can be done. It's just, so that option is there.
So the other thing I heard from that was our state aid money.
Yes.
We need to have a very definitive plan as to why we have that and what's that there, because they will withhold money, knowing that we have that there because nobody else does and we're special and, that it becomes a point of contention, I think, that I think we really need to sit down and determine if we're saving it for cases of emergency, which I know is what we've kind of discussed, what does that look like? Because the town feels, from what I heard, the town feels that that is a very large number for an emergency. Like their perspective, based on our overall budget, that's a pretty big percentage. What do we really have? We've never really discussed what do we really need for an emergency, and what would we really use that for?
Sure.
So
Is there another project?
is there a project we want to do? Is it something we want to use for our rectory? That bill, like, could we go back and say, well, no, we would like to use it for this piece of that, and it could be furnishing it.
Right.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We're saving this money to furnish, it's earmarked for X.
Yep.
But I think we really need to figure out what that is. And we need to figure that out before we go back for budgets next year. Because that question is gonna come up
Smart.
and we need to be able to definitively say, this is what we have that money for. This is what we're putting this much aside for the rainy day thing, okay? If it rains in the library, we need to replace all the books.
Literally.
So we're putting aside X, Y, and Z for that, and we can, whatever that number is, we justify, we're putting it aside for this reason. We estimate, if we're doing it to replace the books, we estimate our collection is worth $30,000. I'm pulling out numbers. So we're putting aside $30,000 for that.
Yep.
That leaves us 40 left. I don't know what the number exactly is in there, but whatever that balance is earmarked for X, Y, and Z.
That's really smart.
And then there's no question, we can very easily not spend it. You know what I mean? It's explained why we have it, what it's there for. It's not just this rainy day fund that nobody can touch. We won't let anybody touch. We won't touch, like.
Sure. It's the magic fund, it just stays.
Well, my sense when I was talking to Jeremy is that should we come forward with additional hours?
Yeah.
That based on the current composition of the group, select board, they will ask
Every time.
for
Every
state aid. to be
Every time.
part of
Well, that's kind of why I
the
said.
bridge part of the
Yes.
policy. Now, but you
Unless
said,
we've already
that's,
spent it.
yeah,
Right.
that's further ahead than we were 5,
Mhm.
6 years ago, but it's still a question of, well, all right, but that's state aid and we have X plan for this and we're gonna earmark this for, you know.
Right.
You definitely need to have all of those ducks in.
Yep, and that's why I asked the question about like, we talked about stack, where we want to be,
Yes.
wanted
Yeah.
a full-time person. That's not something that we can just pull a percentage out of state aid. That's a separate hire, that's a separate process.
Yeah.
So like recognizing that there may be that bigger wicket that we have to hit.
Right,
And that's not we don't have to solve that. We have to say, we have this requirement. Where we want to meet the town's desire to be open this much, this is how we do it.
right.
And this is where we can project to get there.
Right.
Because couldn't pull a full-time position out of state aid and continue that and not try to do anything else. There's no way.
Right.
And you said, who knows what happens tomorrow?
Right.
Right.
And the state, I mean, I watch it at the school where we've put in for grant money and it doesn't ever show up.
Yeah.
We've been waiting over a year for them to approve a grant they pretty much said we had, and we've never seen the money.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, and then,
I mean, there's more than one like that right now. So, and with the whole, like, with you guys even, they took money out of one account to pay something
Oh,
else
right.
because they could, like,
Right.
they're so discombobulated right now that I don't trust that anything is
I mean, it's
safe.
been pretty consistent, the state aid has been pretty consistent between 14 and 16 each year, but I think we can't guarantee that.
Right.
You know, it could be quite a bit less, I don't know. I'm just not sure. So,
Sorry, I digress, sorry,
That's
that,
that's not that.
but I think we may need to put that on the agenda and maybe you're all like, kind of think about what that should be, and maybe Andrew, you have some ideas.
as far as, yeah.
What to do with state aid, I mean,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's not a problem, it's not something we're gonna solve today, but I think it might be something that's worth putting on the docket and discussing and trying to come up with that over the next couple of months.
Yeah. Absolutely. December and January. So we can, the question come up in February, March, we're ready to start.
Right, we have a very definitive, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yes. Just in terms of the other things on the front.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's right. The website, Tara and I are doing training tomorrow morning. It's very much a work in progress. So what you see right now is not the way it'll be in. It's not going to be the end product. We have ideas, we have plans for cleaning things up, tweaking, making the photos much sharper than they currently are. It's very much a work in progress, and a lot of it has to do with just summer and not. Ours is a different animal to a number of other department pages, which was like one page.
Yeah.
So
Ours is a lot more focused.
it is, and so this is what we want to communicate to them tomorrow when we're in this training session. I think I mentioned it's additional 720 for doing it, but it's 3 hours and hopefully we get a lot of our questions answered.
Yeah, I think it's worth it.
Let's see, just in terms of, because I know one of the things on here was
We
strategic
have
plan
state aid,
goals.
we have to pay for that.
Yeah, well,
Oh, I was gonna ask, do you know where's that funding coming from? And not that it matters for that's $750.
that's coming out of contract services
Okay,
line. Yeah,
Okay.
we're all right with that.
Okay.
Just want to let you know, that Sean talked to me about the bus stop. Disco, I have to reach out to the principals and just arrange time, stop over and just kind of talk about some other ways outside the bus stop that we can collect.
And I think she would be all about that. She
Okay,
is,
good.
she has been very open
Yeah,
and wants
that's
to
good.
do collaborations. She's,
Okay.
you know,
And then, homebound outreach, I have reached out to Amy and sometimes have not gotten satisfaction for my emails. So I'm just gonna follow up and we'll go from there. So those are the two sort of strategic planning outreach, because I think we talked about outreach this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
The focus. All the computers are upgraded to Windows 11. State
Nice.
aid report, is due October 3rd. Are you around the week of October 3rd? Okay, just want to make sure somebody's around for state.
I buy twice a day. Every time.
I don't have much in terms of the budget report. We are, I said, about 1% below target on the salaries, about 2% above target on operations, puts us like 0.5% above target on the total budget. Couple areas that we haven't spent as much in supplies and books particularly. We're gonna have a larger KLG bill this next month. Junior library bill, it's over 6,000. So I mean, these numbers are going to change. So if you're like, well, gee, they've only spent 7% of the book so far.
It's good.
It's the summertime. Finally, we're back to sort of doing. Does anybody have any questions about the director's report or budget report?
Not,
Any discussion, not really, I don't know if you was even in your report. I know Tuesday night when we were leaving, we were talking about the
Yes.
book club.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Has there been?
Paige did stop by and picked up the copies of the books.
Okay,
There hasn't been as much communication between Jen and Paige over at the high school, which obviously has been frustrating for Jen, and I totally get it. What has to happen now is we have to make sure that Paige communicates to the students that the 21st of October is when the book club's going to
Yeah.
and that, as mentioned, we're going to bring our refreshments and, bring along our questions and that. I still think it might be helpful to sit down with Paige, or at the very least, sort of send an email and say, this is kind of how we do it. Part of it has to do with what she has to do on her end, as far as Google Classroom goes.
and set it up.
And so that she has the structure there.
So it's a club, right?
Yeah, it's considered a club, so there's some new parameters, I think, for this now, or I don't know if it's new.
So she,
I think that's-
she's come in, she was redoing everything
Right.
and making it her.
Yeah, so from what Jen explained on Tuesday was that it sounds like she's kind of putting it on the students, having it as a student-run club, where it really is a library-run club.
Right.
And we kind of set the structure, we, Andrew and Tara, were kind of set the structure, and Jen, and we fund the book, we fund the snacks, where so Jen was feeling like Paige, like you said, is trying to kind of do her own thing.
Yeah, it's morphing into something that is theirs, and then suddenly we're just sort of like funding it.
Which,
Do you want me to chat with you? Just check.
I don't know
with
what sort of, like, if you have a you say that, the one thing I did talk to Jen about today is like, literally, Amy, when Amy was there, was very structured about this, and like sent out the reminders,
so like, it's not that I can go.
communication between her.
Yet, that kind of stuff.
And so whether or not they even know that the 21st is the date, that's what I'm concerned.
All right, and I'll check in with her. I know we did a whole clubs thing today. So we rearranged our entire schedule in order to set up a 30-minute block so that the students could go to clubs. And with clubs and, no, it's not. We redid our entire schedule, which is part of my God, today was rough. It shouldn't have been, but it felt like it. But, and I had a club to run during that 30 minutes, so, but I can touch base there and see. So theoretically, her club, if your club was on the list.
I thought it was, because I think they met today.
I think it was, yeah, they should have met today during that 30-minute window.
Yeah.
And if that's the survey. I think it was fine.
We appreciate you.
No, it really wasn't terrible. It was, it just felt like a lot. Oh, I can't find it. I'll find it eventually and I'll double check on where, that's at. It's just like, filed this, I filed this email. Sometimes I do that. I don't want to think about it anymore. It's like, oh, wait, there it is. Okay, I found it. Here's the locations. All right, book club. I feel like, yeah, I saw it. Okay. Yeah, it was in the media center. So she did hold the club today.
Yeah.
And it could be that she was trying to see what the interest is in students too, how many show up, get them signed up in the thing. But I will go and chat with her and I will just pose it as, I'm a library trustee, whatever, how can I help? How can I help? How can I insert myself in here to get us one big one?
But I gotta say, hey, listen, I can send it out in the Google Classroom, but it's not really been.
I'm looking at the base compass.
But I can also see what students are important to.
Right.
And if there are certain students that I know, I may be able to ping them and nudge them into,
Okay.
you know, I don't know what I can do, but I can at least try to insert myself a little, see what happens. It gives me an excuse to go and talk to her. So yeah, I will follow up on that.
Yeah, it's freezing in here.
I always bring a tote.
And I have a long sleeve shirt on.
No, I always bring a layer, because I'm always.
Well, maybe that's an
So get it.
exaggeration.
Thank you, Brenda.
Well, I like it cold, so.
Oh,
It was only at 68.
Only.
I'm like 64 at home.
Seriously? Oh, it's like 72 or 75. All right, job description, do we really need to chat about that at this point?
Well, it sounded to me like he said.
You said the window, yeah.
The air in.
Yeah.
Melding them together.
Okay,
Just say you lose.
strategic goals, we kind of already talked about those.
I'll have more information on that. For the next one.
And
Once I reach out to Amy and to Fisco and then.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can have more information.
Personnel, we added this one.
So yeah, the only reason I wanted to say is sometimes in terms of the Collins study or in terms of just.
We'll tell it tomorrow. I'm almost done with that. Department books. It's really good.
Yes.
Mhm.
Can you hear that, Alex?
I got like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So anyway, it's a question on staff and having conversations
I got.
while staff is here. You know, during open, and I didn't know if it's the sort of thing we wanted to move down the agenda. If it's kind of thing, if we need to speak frankly, like, does that go to?
I think that goes, if we're talking, if we go into executive session.
Okay, all right,
Personal information.
Yes.
Salaries. Negotiation, the salaries, anything related to, other. Exactly.
Right.
Stuff should be in
Executive session.
Okay, all right, because obviously I talk staff. There's nothing that I.
You're not talking about.
But I'm always a little concerned if it starts to get into areas that sound like, I don't know if.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just move those into executive session.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That was it, that was essentially it, like,
Okay.
is it, are the agenda down further, or is it in the next session, so you've answered, thank you.
Board bylaws and elections, I think I sent them all out to everybody. Which I can send out, speaking of sending out, I can share that Collins study if you all haven't seen it. I have not seen it. I will share that with you. I didn't share it originally because he didn't say to, and I wasn't sure, I knew he was gonna talk to somebody today. So, I will share that tonight.
Old money.
Okay, sorry. So is there any, I mean,
So the only update we have on the rectory subcommittee is that we were going with that.
no, but I'm cool with moving on to that.
Sorry. is that we did get our report from GRLA and, we were all thrilled with it and very happy with where they came in with numbers.
I would say with the numbers good.
Yeah, yeah, way better than expected.
Which, does that contradict what he was saying?
Completely.
Well, he's talking about the rehab, and the rehab.
It's expensive and new builds. We're actually the opposite.
But there, we also really aren't doing an addition, I mean, except for the elevator thingy, whatever it's called. But we're not really doing anything, we're not really doing an addition where theirs will involve much more of an addition and bringing up to code, like,
We got the goals.
yes, like our code stuff probably is minimal compared to what they have to go through.
Sure.
So maybe, but yeah, we were way lower like than we all anticipated, so.
Well, I think the difference though is they have very.
She's not even, oh, yeah.
Next time, building us fall down.
I agree, and we don't want it to drag us with it.
It needs freshening.
So we were thinking, you know, maybe at the October meeting that we could send to the school team. We can send it out ahead of time so that even though you won't be at the meeting, you can at least take a look at it.
And I can try and see if I can get anything out of it. It's only, I want to watch on this team and it's still,
Yeah, well.
still filling them out. There's only 3 of us in the class, so if I'm not there, it's
Pretty obvious. Yeah. So that's kind of where we stand, and then we figured after we present it to you guys, then we would then present it to the capital planning committee.
Okay.
And James's suggestion was, you know, get it, even though it's already on their minds, get it kind of on their list, so that moving forward, and then,
It's definitely inherent.
And I can be your sponsor for it.
Right. Hey, Chuck.
Got like 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Just wrapping up.
All
right.
so that was really our update.
Yes.
All right, do we want to set our next meeting? Oh, was there anything else anybody wanted to add?
Everyone got their new policy finalized and done. So feel free to take another check through it. Next month, we can do the thumbs up if you guys are good with it. Andrew and I did our final to make sure everything is missed. We got it there.
Like roasted eggplant and zucchini and.
Okay, next meeting?
Papers.
So, I don't know why I put this, there's a program the night of the 9th at 7. It's kind of Einstein.
I'm away till the 12th,
Oh, all right, so maybe we should.
and especially where Lisa's potentially not gonna be able to be here.
I read until 1:70 and I
The
couldn't finish it.
16th, that works for everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you say that date again? Other people are talking. I'm having a really
Oh, there is, yeah, there's other people in the library. So October 16th, we'll do the trustee meeting at 6 P.M.
Yep.
And then we will then reconvene in the office and find it. Okay, yeah.
We're working on it.
I know.
Okay.
So it's what was a motion for to adjourn?
Anyway, all right, roll call.
Allison Chu, I.
James Steadfast.
Gabriel Marcello, aye.
Michael, I. Sure.
And everybody knows John is overseas, so.
Yes.
Yes.
He'll get back this next time, but he's some his regrets because he's missed a couple during the summer. Things are just crazy for him, so.
His daughter is going
He's going to a school in Edinburgh, so.